So, we actually have a definitive end to the legal proceedings now. According to a direct statement from the Justice Department, 55-year-old Anthony James Kazmierczak has officially entered a guilty plea. Specifically, he pleaded guilty to one count of assaulting a United States officer in U.S. District Court. The crucial thing here, this is no longer an ongoing investigation. There is no impending trial hanging in the balance. It's a closed, factual admission of guilt. This plea firmly anchors our understanding of the whole event today, moving the narrative from just an allegation into a hard matter of legal record.
To really understand how we arrived at this definitive plea, we kinda need to picture the scene where this legal resolution took place. The proceedings were presided over by U.S. District Judge Joan Erickson. You know, this wasn't just some piece of paper being quietly filed away. It was right there, in this highly formalized setting, that Kazmierczak stood before the judge and made his admissions. Establishing that setting is important because it really underscores the absolute gravity of the charges and the formal legal threshold that was crossed during this hearing.
Right in front of Judge Erickson, Kazmierczak formally admitted to two very specific things. First, the Justice Department stated he admitted he planned the assault. So this means it was a premeditated act, not just some spontaneous loss of control. Second, he explicitly stated his motive. He did not agree with Representative Omar's political views. That gives us a clear, factual admission of a politically motivated disruption, recorded exactly like that in the court.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because when we look at this chronologically, the speed of the justice system here is actually pretty striking. The precipitating event, that chaotic town hall incident itself, occurred on January 27, 2026. Almost immediately following that, in late January, we see the arrest of the suspect, along with the critical phase of forensic lab testing, which we're going to detail in just a moment. Finally, that incredibly swift evidentiary process brings us right up to May 2026, culminating in the guilty plea we just talked about. It gives us a really clean architectural framework for understanding the entire life cycle of this federal case.
Okay, so to fully grasp the context of that guilty plea, we need to rewind our timeline back a bit to that very first date, January 27, 2026. Picture a community town hall gathering in Minneapolis. You know how these events work, right? They're designed to be open, public forums where elected officials speak directly to their constituents. It's an environment that literally depends on public presence, but it also heavily relies on a baseline of order and security. Well, on this particular day, the atmosphere was about to shift entirely from a standard political address into this tense, documentary-style scene of sudden disruption. To set the scene accurately, we really have to look at what was actively being discussed in the room moments before everything broke down. Representative Omar's remarks were highly charged. She was actively condemning President Donald Trump's illegal immigration crackdown. She was also heavily criticizing the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE, specifically regarding their actions over in Minnesota. Furthermore, she was discussing the fatal shootings of two U.S. citizens by federal agents in Minneapolis. These were incredibly weighty, polarizing political issues echoing through the venue, right at the exact moment Kazmierczak decided to act on his disagreement.
And that brings us to the actual mechanics of the assault itself. The tension in that room escalated in literally a matter of seconds. Step 1. The initial disruption. Kazmierczak starts gesturing and shouting directly at Representative Omar, completely breaking the decorum of the event. Then, Step 2. The physical escalation. He actually produces a syringe and actively deploys a liquid from it, spraying it right at the Congresswoman. And finally, Step 3. The immediate neutralization of the threat. Security guards stationed at the town hall quickly rushed in and physically subdued him. It was just this incredibly fast, sudden sequence of absolute chaos right in the middle of a public forum.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, well, when you hear about a premeditated attack involving a syringe and some unknown sprayed liquid at a high-profile political event, your mind immediately jumps to terrifying chemical agents, right? But the reality of this specific case was strangely specific and honestly somewhat bizarre. The liquid inside the syringe that Kazmierczak used to spray the representative was in fact just apple cider vinegar. It's a really striking detail that adds a very unusual layer to the whole nature of this premeditated assault. But of course, law enforcement doesn't just take a suspect's word for what a substance might be. They rely on hard science. Following the incident, the Justice Department confirmed that the liquid, which, by the way, did successfully land on Representative Omar's clothing and skin, was subjected to rigorous lab analysis. The forensic results came back and confirmed that the liquid indeed contained acetic acid, which is the primary active compound found in vinegar. So authorities didn't just guess, they fully verified the physical evidence before bringing down any formal federal charges.
Let's look at the immediate aftermath for the two individuals involved here.
Despite having the liquid land directly on her skin and clothing, Representative Omar was completely uninjured. Actually, and this is pretty remarkable, while the town hall was temporarily disrupted, she pretty much brushed off the incident and just continued her remarks to the audience. Her attacker, however, faced a completely different outcome. As we know, Kazmierczuk was physically subdued by security, officially arrested by law enforcement, and taken into custody. And of course, that led directly to the federal charges and the guilty plea we discussed at the very start of our explanator.
As we wrap up this explainer, we are definitely left with a critical, forward-looking consideration. We've laid out the facts: a politically motivated, premeditated assault using a completely bizarre weapon in a public space, ending in a swift federal guilty plea. But this leaves us with a much larger question to ponder. As political divisions in the country remain incredibly stark, how will this specific incident shape the future security protocols of public town halls? When elected officials engage directly with the public on highly polarized issues, how on earth can open dialogue be balanced with necessary safety? It's a really complex question that goes way beyond this single courtroom resolution. Thank you so much for joining me to explore the facts of this case today. Keep asking questions and keep seeking to understand the events shaping our public spaces.